Hello and welcome to Pan's Grotto on our Welsh riverbank here in mid Wales. We're finally in March and spring's on its way. Up on the land next to the house there's daffodils mixed with snowdrops on the lawn, and down here I'm surrounded by the beginnings of bluebells. It's going to look amazing on the riverbank. Tonight, instead of a short story, I'm going to read you an extract from my latest book, The Naked Witch. It's on pre-order at the moment, but it'll be released on the 21st of March, the first day of spring. The Naked Witch is about Lizzie Martin, a modern woman juggling work, family commitments, and all the while seeking the truth about the death of her dad. The piece I'm going to read to you tonight, Lizzie goes on holiday and takes Rowan to see her granny. They're in Spain and they've been invited to a beach party. Antonio posted their postcards on the way to the party before driving Marshal, Lizzie and Rowan to their final destination. Joshua and Bryony followed behind in the hire car. Through the wrought iron gates they joined the queue of long, slim, shiny black cars pulling slowly up at the front entrance. The grounds were ablaze with fairy lights, hanging in streaming chains, enveloping shrubs and small trees. Warm, sweet smells met their noses as they climbed out. A driver took the keys from Antonio, smart in his plain black suit and white shirt, as he helped Marcia up the 6 stone steps to the open double doors. She wore a turquoise gown, embedded with tiny crystals, and a turquoise and silver wrap swathing her neck and trailing down her back. Her hair was set in a smooth, twisted chignon, pinned in place and studded with diamante. Behind her walked Joshua and Bryony, and while Bryony's long jade green dress was revealing in the extreme, cut high on the leg and low on front and back, it was Lizzie and Rowan who caused a susurration in the crowd. In pastel shades of lilacs, peaches and blues, their cotton gowns hung cool and loose, each cinched below the bust with a matching ribbon. They wore their hair up, with tendrils of curls framing their faces beneath a matching pastel band. It was Rowan's idea to rock the historical look. Lizzie had been nervous at first, but Rowan's confidence was infectious. They walked into the main hall among the glitz and glamour. Even waiting in the receiving line, they evoked smiles and admiring glances. Marcia began shaking hands with Antonio at her elbow, introducing the members of her family. Robert, Doreen, this is my son Joshua and his family. Joshua, this is Robert Klein, chief of the lodge here, and the host of this evening's soiree, the annual beach party. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Klein. This is my girlfriend Bryony and my daughter Rowan. Robert Klein shook hands, peering through thick horn-rimmed spectacles. Doreen wafted a hand in acknowledgement before taking her place a step behind her husband. Lizzie caught a glimpse of hazel eyes in a face flushed with alcohol and framed by cotton candy dyed orange. Her red rosebud lips added to the impression that she had hoped for honey and discovered lime instead. For one split second Doreen's eyes locked with Lizzie's, and the force of the fear coming from behind them almost knocked Lizzie sideways. Why was this woman afraid of her? They'd never met. She was sure, yet Doreen Klein looked ready to run from the room. Doreen drained the remains of her sherry glass and turned away. Mr. Klein pointed at Lizzie. And who's she? Elizabeth Martin, my daughter-in-law. Ex-daughter-in-law, mother. Lizzie's body produced an involuntary bow, and she looked up into studious brown eyes. "Thank you for inviting us, Mr. Klein." "Robert, please. Delighted to meet you, Elizabeth, and you, Rowan. I do hope you enjoy the party. May I introduce you to George Anders, Philip Bergen, Edgar Masters, and Errol Coleman." Errol was half the age of the others, his blue eyes darting nervously between Elizabeth, Klein, and Joshua. He bowed to Rowan, who simpered coyly. "Pleased to meet you, ladies. I do hope you'll be available for a dance later this evening." Guests talked in groups in the ballroom. Most of the party makers were middle-aged men in dinner suits, with duly bedecked women in evening gowns dripping with jewels. A few men stood out from the crowd. Lizzie guessed them to be foreign dignitaries in bright, long shift coats and hats. While they found drinks, Lizzie saw Errol talking to a woman in a full-length scarlet velvet dress edged in gold, her hair coiffed off her neck into a creation of which Marie Antoinette would have been proud. The house wasn't on the beach, but above it. Lizzie walked down a crooked path, lit by solar lights and lampposts, across a grassy lawn and down a meandering, gently sloping slipway before she found herself with sand between her toes. Shoes in hand, she stood looking at the ocean. No lights were visible from the house, but the almost full moon shone over the dark water. Rowan was dancing with Bryony. The huge wooden veranda jutted out from the ballroom to make an outdoor dance floor. The band played swing, rock and roll, and jazz, as well as a waltz and a quick step or two. Music drifted down to her, and she swayed beneath the stars. "You're not enjoying the party?" Lizzie spun round, her shoes raised in one hand like a weapon. "Oh, sorry, Mr. Coleman, you startled me." Lizzie turned back to the sea. The smell of expensive cologne came closer. "It's a great party, honestly, but the sea beckoned me the moment I saw it from the veranda. I'm not much of a dancer, so I thought I'd take a walk." "I don't mind. I love the sea too. We lived close to it when I was a child before we moved to London." "But you live here now?" "Part of the year, since my father passed away. I have his business to attend to both here and in England." "I'm sorry to hear you lost your father. I'm sure he'd be proud of you taking on so much responsibility so young." Errol sighed and bowed his head. "I was born and brought up to it, but it doesn't always make me happy." He held out his arm. "Can I walk you to the shoreline?" Lizzie clung to muscles bulging beneath the designer jacket and pristine white shirt. "Thank you." "What about you? Are you happy, Miss Martin?" "I am, Mr. Coleman. Most of the time I enjoy my job. I love my daughter, and I find time to paint again." "Errol, please. But you still have an ex-husband." "I haven't seen him in years, or spoken to him before this week." "Yet you bear his name." "For Rowan's sake. It's much easier for her at school." "I see." "He usually brings Rowan to Marshal's, Mrs. Martin's, in the summer, but she invited us both this year. I'm glad. It's been lovely seeing her and spending time with Rowan without worrying about work, meals, or the gas bill." She laughed. "What's funny?" They stood at the water's edge. Errol took off his shoes. "I was thinking how impressed you must be with my exciting life. I'm too honest. That's my problem." It may have been the flute of champagne or the warm evening breeze, but Lizzie relaxed, surprised at her openness with a stranger. On the beach, beneath the moon, who needed armour? She lifted her skirts and they stood in the shallows beneath the moon, cool water brushing their calves. "If being honest is all you worry about, Elizabeth, then I envy you." "Call me Lizzie. Only my mother calls me Elizabeth. But Errol, what do you mean?" "You've eyes. When you go back to the party, open them." Errol's chiselled face was serious, his cheeks hollow and drawn. pain screamed from his pale blue eyes, and she took both his hands. "What do you mean?" Errol shook his head and turned from her. "I'll walk you back." Lizzie pulled him round to face her. "What's wrong, Errol? Can't you tell me?" He extended his arm and she took it. "My father's name was Coleman. He worked for Anita and her husband all his life. Now I work for them." "Anita is the lady in the red dress?" Errol nodded. "Just work?" Errol turned away as he leaned on a rock and brushed sand from his feet. "I do whatever the job asks of me." Lizzie sought Rowan and found her sitting beside Marshal on the veranda at the side of the house. A patio heater warmed the cosy spot, and they were deep in conversation when Lizzie appeared. "Where have you been, Mum?" "I couldn't resist the beach, sorry." "You having fun?" "I was. Brian and I were dancing, but Dad took her away, said he needed her." "Sorry you missed out on your dancing. You having fun, Marsha?" "I love all the glitz, dear. You know I do. But my pins don't hold me as well as they used to, so my dancing days are over." "I reckon you could manage a waltz, Nanny." Marsha Martin took a sip of her drink and looked up at Antonio standing behind her and smiled. "You're right, Rowan, and that sounds like one to me." By the light of the moon, Lizzie and Rowan watched Marshal Antonio dancing on the veranda. He held her, protecting her delicate porcelain body, gently moving her to the beat of the music, pushing his legs close to hers. Lizzie saw Errol glancing their way and watched his easy gait as he sauntered over. He bowed to Rowan. "May I have this dance?" Wide-eyed, Rowan nodded. Alone beside the heater, Lizzie watched the dance of two lives enacted before her. Marsha's was a last dance, a romantic finale to an exciting life of luxury, while Rowan's was a new beginning, taking tentative steps towards adulthood, still naive and still learning, but already knowing how unfair life could be. I do hope you enjoyed the excerpt. If you'd like to hear more stories on the riverbank, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to find more out about this book and the others that I've written, you can go on to Amazon and find my author page. Just put in Wendy Steele, you'll find me. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Good night.